In 2016, a man named Oliver Plumlee went hiking alone in the Northern Cascades, one of the most rugged and remote mountain ranges in North America. As intimidating as it was, it didn't really faze Oliver. Despite being retired, he seemed to enjoy these times of mountains in the north. He'd spent most of his younger years exploring mountain trails, fishing cold rivers, and sleeping under stars so bright they looked close enough to touch. He wasn't a survival expert or a thrill seeker, just one of those quiet, solitary types who felt more at home among trees than people. He told his family he was going on one last trip. Just him, a small pack, and the Cascades. He set out early that morning under a slate-gray sky, moving slower than he remembered but still confident. The first few hours were perfect. Pine scent sharp in the air, frost crunching beneath his boots, and that deep silence only mountains can hold. But late that afternoon, something went wrong. The main trail had been rerouted since he'd last been there. Storm damage, landslides, who knows? And when he tried to cut across an old path he recognized, the markers vanished. It didn't take long before Oliver realized he was lost. Not a few minutes off track, lost. Completely turned around, lost. The woods up there are brutal. Steep slopes, slick moss-covered boulders, gullies that look shallow but drop 10 feet down. Every step felt heavier, the air colder, thicker. And as the sun dipped, that familiar comfort he used to feel in the wild was gone. In its place came something else, a low hum of unease, like he was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. By nightfall, the fog had rolled in, heavy and wet, clinging to his face and clothes. He set up a small emergency shelter near a stream, but every sound out there felt too close. Branches snapping, soft crunches in the undergrowth. He told himself it was deer, maybe a fox, but as the hours dragged on, that logic started to sound thinner and thinner. Every sound felt directed, intentional. A twig snapping just to his left, a soft scuff of something sliding over wet leaves. It wasn't constant, but it never completely went away either. That feeling, being watched, it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It just made the hairs stand on the back of his neck. Then, as he crouched to refill his canteen, he saw movement. Across the stream, maybe 20 feet away, a figure. It was tall, motionless, watching. The fog distorted its shape, but the face, or what he could see of it, was unnaturally pale, almost glowing against the dark trees. Oliver froze. He called out, his voice shaking. "Hey! You okay out there?" No answer. The figure didn't move, didn't make a sound. Then the fog shifted, and it was gone. Just gone. He stood there for what felt like minutes, waiting for the crunch of retreating footsteps, for anything. But the forest was silent again. Too silent. He barely slept that night. The next morning, he packed up and started downhill. He didn't know where he was going, just away. Away from whatever that was. The trail, if it could even be called that, was brutal. Loose rocks, slick roots, patches of snow that hid sudden drops. The kind of terrain that forces you to look down every step of the way. Which is why he didn't see it at first. The soles of his boots scraped against loose shale. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Not the circling hawk overhead, but lower, near the scree slope. Instinct slammed his back against the cold cliff face. Heart hammering against ribs, he scanned the rocks. Nothing. Just wind-stirred dust. Then, impossibly, a figure stood beside a twisted pine halfway down the slope. How? He hadn't blinked. Tall, draped in tattered gray cloth that seemed to absorb the light, not reflect it. Ghost pale skin stretched tight over sharp cheekbones. The figure raised one slender hand, palm out. Not a greeting, a warning. The air grew colder. He scrambled sideways, dislodging stones that clattered into the void. When he glanced back, the figure was closer, much closer, silent as snowfall. No footprints disturbed the scree beneath its bare feet. Its eyes were dark hollows, fixed unblinkingly on him. "Run!" "Where?" The stranger pointed sharply eastward, towards a narrow fissure he hadn't noticed. Its lips didn't move, yet a soundless pressure pushed against his thoughts. "That way." The command bypassed language, settling like ice in his gut. Every instinct screamed predator, yet the gesture held undeniable purpose. Help? Trap? He edged toward the fissure, muscles coiled. The stranger flowed alongside, keeping distance but matching his frantic pace with unnatural, liquid grace. No crunch of gravel beneath those feet, no shift in expression. Beneath the tattered cloth, its limbs seemed too long, joints bending all wrong. Oliver's heartbeat went wild. He turned and started moving faster, tripping over stones, branches whipping at his face. His boot slipped, sending loose stones clattering down the incline. Before he could catch himself, a huge boulder above him shifted loose and slammed against his leg, pinning him flat against the rock. He screamed. Pain shot up his side. He tried prying it loose, pushing, clawing, anything. But the boulder was enormous, slick with moss, easily a few 100 pounds. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching over gravel. Oliver's eyes shot open, and there he was, that same tall, pale figure, standing just a few feet away. Only this time he was closer, much closer. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. The figure tilted his head as if considering him. Then, in one fluid motion, he stepped forward, placed a hand, if you could even call it that, on the boulder, and lifted. Oliver heard stone grind against stone. A groaning, heavy sound, and just like that, the boulder moved. It didn't roll or shift gradually. It just rose, steady and effortless, like gravity had stopped caring. For a split second, Oliver thought this was it, that this thing was about to crush him completely. He tried to crawl back, to push himself away, but he couldn't move. He just stared up, terrified, as the stranger's arm extended toward him. And then, gently, almost tenderly, the man reached down and helped him up. No words, no expression, just that cold, unblinking stare. And Oliver was left standing, trembling, heart hammering in his chest, wondering what he had just witnessed. Then the stranger raised a hand, slow and deliberate, as if gesturing, "Come with me." Something in Oliver hesitated, but against all reason, he followed. The stranger didn't speak, he just moved, quiet, certain, like he knew exactly where he was going. Oliver was still limping from the pain he felt, so it was hard to keep up. Some minutes passed, and the stranger was now side by side with him. Oliver kept looking around, trying to make sense of things, and when he turned around to get another good look at the stranger, he wasn't there. He just vanished. Oliver couldn't believe this. They were in a clearing, gone, no sound, no footprints where they had been walking. By the time Oliver stumbled back onto the main ridge, his body was a patchwork of bruises and exhaustion. But when he finally saw the faint shimmer of a ranger's reflective sign through the trees, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like waking up from someone else's dream. They found him the next morning, collapsed near an old fire road, half frozen, mumbling incoherently, shocked and dehydrated. He told them everything, about the feeling of being watched, about the pale man who lifted a boulder like it was nothing, about how, after the fog cleared, there were no footprints anywhere near where he'd fallen. Not his, not anyone else's. The rangers checked the site the same day. They found the same boulder, half buried, exactly where Oliver described. But the ground around it? Untouched. Not a single print in the mud. When Oliver was finally discharged from the hospital, he went back to his small home in the foothills. He told his friends he was done with the wilderness, said he'd seen enough of it for a lifetime. There's one detail he told a neighbor, weeks later, something he hadn't shared with the rangers. The sleeve of his jacket had been torn during the accident, and when he got home, he noticed something strange on the fabric. A faint, pale print, a hand-shaped mark, too big to be that of a human. And it never faded. He kept that jacket hanging by his door until the day he died. And on particularly foggy nights, when the wind howled through the trees, some say they can see a figure standing at the edge of the woods, tall, motionless, and white as smoke, always facing the mountains.